I'm a little disappointed that this Penguin Collections that we've been going through doesn't give us X-Men issue 6. Issue 6 is apparently the first time the X-Men fought Namor, and I was just there for it. But I think in terms of explaining the origin of the X-Men and kind of staying on point, they wanted to show what happened after Xavier. Spoilers, if you guys haven't been following. But last issue, we all assumed Xavier lost his powers, and so it was up to the X-Men by themselves to work together to take out the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, only to find out at the end that Xavier tricked them, saying that this was my last test for you, and you passed with flying colors. You're now graduated in full-fledged X-Men. Now, there's a lot to dive into because we have the return of the Blob, and then we have the surprise of the year in this jam-packed issue. You will meet the X-Men's new leader. So let's dive into it. Writer, with all the spellbinding skill of Stan Lee, drawn with all the titanic talent of Jack Kirby, inked with the vibrant verve of Schick Stone, and lettered with all the words spelled right by Art Simek. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I wasn't there when these books were created. I wasn't there when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby made the X-Men. I wasn't there when Lee and Ditko made Spider-Man, etc., so forth. So a lot of people will say that Stan Lee is a hack, that he stole all the credit. I wasn't there, so I can only say that I can play devil's advocate, saying that I appreciate right here doing that for your creators. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe he was a jerk. I don't know. But from a fan's point of view, seeing that he gives credit where credit's due, and another thing that kind of makes me sort of, pause, I guess is the right word, is there's an episode of Comic Book Men where John Romita Jr. is at the stash, and he sees a sketch that Jim Lee did for the stash, and he goes, hey, I would love to do a sketch for you guys. And so he goes on to reminisce about the first time he fell in love with Spider-Man and Daredevil, and he was talking about when he was a little boy and his dad, John Romita Sr., was sketching out quick sketches for his issues of Spider-Man. And he said that Stan Lee came over, and he's just this little boy with his toys watching Stan Lee jump across all of their furniture, making all the thwip poses for John Romita Sr., and he said it was just magical to see this happen, and that's what kind of pushed him in the direction of what his father did. So hearing stories like that, not just from the mouth of Stan Lee or seeing stuff like this, but hearing it from creators that have been in the business and are established, makes me think that I think it's a little blown out of proportion. Let me know. That's Chris Mack's soapbox. So let me know. Let's dive into the book. So I love this artwork by Kirby and the art team, where we actually get a camera lens like this. And it's come at last, the moment we've been waiting for. We are looking at the Uncanny X-Men, accompanied by Professor Xavier, as they pose before an automatic camera on their graduation day. But perhaps their smiles will not come so easily if they suspected the incredible danger they will soon be facing. And I always think that when I see a photo like this, I'm always like, what happened behind the scenes? And we kind of see that in movies where they'll do the and then we'll go behind the scenes. And that's sort of what happens here, where we get the graduation photo, and then boom, we see everyone being congratulated, and Scott saying, I appreciate everything you've done for us, sir. And then this is where you really start to feel that Lee has, in terms of writing the characters, fleshing them out, we're really starting to see who the X-Men are compared to when we went over issue 1. Xavier is not the hard ass that we initially saw. He says, nonsense, Scott. All I did was take the talent that you already had and channeled it in the right direction. You youngsters did all the work. And so Xavier says that he has a trip to go on, and he says, just as all of you have mastered your mutant powers to my complete satisfaction, there is nothing more that I can teach you. And before we get into that, let me see if I can find it. Hold on. He goes, now I shall not bore you with the long speeches, but I must tell you, you are each more than mere Homo sapiens. You are the forerunners of Homo superior. Superior man. You each have a priceless extra mutant power to be used for the good of humanity. And you must still keep your X-Men identity secret, for the world's ordinary humans is not yet ready to accept you, while Magneto and his band of evil mutants still seek to destroy you. And now it's time for me to bid you farewell. He goes, I will appoint a group leader to act on my behalf until I return. Now, just in these few panels, does this sound like Xavier Krakoa, where I get what Jonathan Hickman was initially trying to do, where they were just sort of fed up. And, you can kind of see that how you'd be worn down and the dream starts to rub thin after a while. But still, Krakoa to me just did not feel hopeful or bright compared to this. And even in the colors, this old Technicolor look to it, just gives you that hope of a new tomorrow. But before we get anything, we get the return of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And of course, Mastermind is carrying a torch for the Scarlet Witch. And Magneto's saying, or what does it say? You can kind of tell that Mastermind is trying to usurp Magneto. He goes, forgive me, I meant no harm. I'm loyal to you. Bah! Now, the way that they do kind of have Magneto talking here in the old days, instead of hearing, I can't remember the voice actor's name for the animated series. Please refresh my memory. But all I could hear is when he says, bah, loyalties for Homo sapiens. I expect no loyalty. I only demand fear and blind obedience. All I could hear is Uncle Phil's voice from the Shredder in this version because he was so ruthless in this particular version. So we kind of start to see that the stakes are rising. Magneto says he has a new plan. But before we can find out what it is, Xavier says, Scott, will you accompany me to the West Wing? Certainly, sir. And then he thinks, strange. This is one section that's been off limits to us. Now, before we go any further, in terms of aesthetics, I miss when we'd start getting to when a character would talk like this, and then we kind of get the thought bubbles. I hate how not all modern books, but a lot of modern books will then all of a sudden take all the narration, and it's too much. I like that this leads your eye like a newspaper or how a magazine should. So essentially what it is this is where, spoiler alerts, if you don't want to be spoiled, go get this book, come back, and you're back. This is where Xavier first appoints Scott Summers as his team leader. And the first appearance of Cerebro. This is actually a complex ESP machine, which I call Cerebro, from the Latin cerebrum. Cerebro. I haven't had enough coffee, folks, so feel free to make fun of me. Because the Latin meaning the brain. Its sole purpose is to aid in detecting new mutant brain waves, to help us locate other mutants, both good and evil. And then again, I miss when books would teach you something. ESP, X-ray sensory perception. We don't get that anymore. So anyway, Xavier says, you need to replace me. I've decided you, the X-Man known as Cyclops, shall group lead until I return. Me? But sir, the Beast is a better scholar, while Angel is more aggressive and... But it is you who possess the rare quality of leadership. My decision stands. And it shows. That's why I think a lot of people... I've noticed, as I've gotten older, younger generations are warming up to Scott, but when we were kids, God, we hated him. But we were young, impressionable. We wanted to be more like Wolverine or carefree like Iceman or Beast. We didn't understand the weight of responsibility that Scott has. So all the other characters here are saying, let's go into town and celebrate. But then Scott gives them the news that he is the team lead. And I want you to know that I didn't ask for this assignment. In fact, I didn't desire it. I have been thinking of leaving the X-Men. You know how I fear the power beam which emanates my eyes. I shudder to think what would happen if it ever got out of my control. I had hoped to visit various doctors to seek a cure. But the professor convinced me it is my duty to remain, to use my powers against all evil, no matter how I dread the task. And so they all go, and you can kind of see the immaturity of Bobby. Goes, come on, Hank, I know the coolest little coffee shop in Greenwich Village with the dreamiest waitress. Well, then lead on, Macduff. And then I love how the art team, especially Kirby's pencils in this particular scene. Everyone leaves. First, we kind of get a medium shot. They're gone. And here I sit alone. Now, for the first time, I can realize how it must have been for the professor all those long months. Always apart, always alone. And then we hear Cerebro going off. Slowly, thoughtfully, the X-Men known as Cyclops slides the top panel of his desk back, revealing an array of complex electronic controls. Now I listen to the steady drone of Cerebro's voice. Unable to leave my post unless an alarm is sound. And yet, dreading the moment I hear that alarm, for it can only mean the menace of Magneto. So I love how he slowly pull further and further from the room with just the dinging of Cerebro, showing the man now with the weight on his shoulders, or as you say, so heavy as the head that wears the crown. Just great visual storytelling there. And then we see the return of Blob. Now, if you remember when we went over the first appearance of Blob, which I think was issue 3, the X-Men tried to recruit Blob. They brought him to the mansion, did tests on him, and they said, you can join us, we can teach you how to utilize your powers. Instead, Blob got egotistical, went back to the circus and tried to take it over, brought all the carnies to the Xavier Institute and tried to overrun it. Only for Xavier to use like a crude version of Cerebro. I don't remember what he called it, but it enhanced his powers and he not wiped essentially, but repressed those memories from ever happening. So everyone at the circus doesn't know this, like brand new to them, thinking, what the hell is all this? But Magneto does something that jars Blob's memory. And when that happens, Cerebro lights up like a Christmas tree. And I just love how, compared to how we see it now with the helmet and all that good stuff with the Shi'ar technology, I love how it just goes, wee, known hostile mutants, and it just lights up whom they know, which is not a big list. Just an interesting little way. But Scott hears it, knows something's happened. He goes, the professor is gone. It's up to me to take command. I dare not fail. I've got to contact the others. I'll check their destinations in the sign-out book. The sign-out book. Compared to you have Emma or Jean would always say, to me, my X-Men. And now here we kind of cut to where the other members of the team have gone. Greenwich Village, New York. And, oh, you can just see this is 1964, and you can tell how the times have not changed. So just kind of listen to this quick little bit of dialogue. It made me laugh. How about that jazz combo, Hank? It's so far out that they'll be fired if anyone can understand the melody. Do you like the Zen poetry Bernard is reading, big boy? Poetry? I assumed he was checking a housewife's shopping list aloud. He is. That's what makes him a genius. Ugh, I've been to many places like that, and this was umpteen years later. Now Hank takes his shoes off because he has the big beast feet, and everyone just starts worshiping it. Like, oh, we're gonna put free coffee for everyone. Those feet will put us on the map. I appreciate these accolades, but I think you're all totally bereft of sanity. And this is where you can kind of see how Bobby's more the young hothead. Warren, even when Cyclops is not around, can still be the more serious one. Beast has that mixture, and God, that is creepy. Yeah. Anyway, it's just a neat little way to show how the X-Men unwind and what happens when all hell breaks loose. And as Cyclops' first command, move it, all of you. Magneto's contacting us. This is it. And so the battle with the Blob and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants ensue. And just like last time, try as they may, none of them can put down the Blob. No matter how much training, graduated as they are, but nonetheless, they finally learn something that's important that no training session can really give them. Improvisation, what to do in the field, which causes Magneto to once again flee. And then we get a tragic, relatively heartbreaking moment with the Blob, where he feels used and underappreciated. And it feels very much like a Frankenstein Monsters moment. Very excellent read. I highly recommend this issue. Lots of great things, and as I said, all the X-Men finally start to feel the way they are. We start seeing the playboy of Warren Worthington, the kind of the youth angst of Bobby, the, what do you call it? I can't think of the word. The smartness of the Beast, there's a word for it, but I can't think of it. Same with Jean, knowing that she loves Cyclops, but nothing has been said. And then, of course, for me, the shining star of this book are these 3 panels, as Cyclops is now appointed leader of the X-Men. And it goes to show that even though, as we go into X-Men 94, when the new team is selected and Cyclops has had some time under his belt, we go into X-Men 95, the death of Thunderbird, and we can still see how being the leader wears heavy on his soul. Heavy read, lots of entertainment, lots of action, lots of great dialogue. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics, and grab the original books if you can afford it, or if you just see if you can find this Penguin Classics, because they have a lot of great reprints in here. If you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Cerebro bell next to subscribe, that way as I continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with you on hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.